was growing up, I only had two black friends, and they were my cousin's friends first before my grandmother uh, decided that she was going to babysit them. But growing up with them, because essentially that's what we did, we grew up together, and then going into school to an all white school because I lived in an all white neighborhood, it was a little strange. It was a little, you know, not seeing yourself, not seeing any other kids who were black in the same school as you, except for like maybe one or two. It was really strange. Not to say that I had any bad experiences that pertained to like my teachers or anything like that. They all loved me, and that's good. That's great. Um, I did have this one friend who is no longer a friend of mine. She was kind of she turned into a friend of me because she was a little lopsided, for the better term. Um, she was two faced, and I didn't know that until later on in my years. Anyways, I didn't start to see myself, other black kids, that is, until I went into middle school. And they weren't like me. And that was a shock. I learned that yeah, not all black kids are quiet and keep to themselves and don't talk very much unless they're spoken to. I learned that, we can be loud and we can be boisterous and we can be, happy. And that was awesome to see. That was awesome to see. Um, no, I did not live in a bubble, but it felt like I left, like I lived in a bubble. I grew up liking fighting games, reading, coloring. I grew up liking word search puzzles. I was, you know, a nerd without really being a nerd. The only anime that I ever really truly liked was Dragon Ball Z. And if you know, then you know how awesome that show was. I was a quiet kid, mostly because my growing up situation was kind of weird. Um, but knowing that you know my peoples could be loud and boisterous, that was a good thing. That made me realize that I can open up more. I wasn't like other people my age. I like talking to adults. Um, I had this one friend named Johnny. He was about the only person that I spoke to. He was around my age. Um, and then a few years later, I ended up hearing about his passing, and that broke my heart. But I feel like, or at least sometimes I feel like, I missed out on certain things. You know, as a black kid who was raised by, a Puerto Rican mom, I wasn't really around other black kids all that too often to really learn. And I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Feels like a bad thing, but I don't really know how true that is. Really know how true my instinct with that is. Um, I don't know. It was thankfully my upbringing was normal, but I wasn't afforded the opportunity to feel black enough. When I was in middle school, that was the first time I've seen, other black kids that were not, you know, friends of my relatives, so they were loud, they were boisterous, they were happy, and I liked that. Some of them were rude, and, that's the whole thing, but for the most part, they were alive. They seemed unbothered by things. And it was middle school, so I'm sure they had their issues, but for the most part, from the outside looking in, could tell that they were free to be themselves. As a weirdo kid, though, for me, as a weirdo kid, I found out that I didn't really want to be like them. I didn't want to be loud. I didn't really want to be out there. I just wanted to stay to myself and find other people who also stay to themselves. And I don't know, maybe, maybe that's just the weird part, is that I never felt like I fit in, even with the black kids that were in my middle school. Never felt like I fit in. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Maybe it was me. Because I can't really blame them for anything. They didn't know me. Oh, that brings up a story I learned a few years after high school, which was also diverse, by the way. I had a terrible high school, terrible high school years, but you know, keeping to myself, dealing with depression, dealing with coming out. Yeah, all of that was terrible. Did not I didn't have the support that I needed, though, so that's a whole different story for another day, hopefully. But I didn't know how catty women can be, or girls could be, until I was out of high school. And my sister told me that this girl that I had shared one class with had started a rumor about me giving knob jobs to this one guy who I also had like one class with. And I was like, oh, because again, I was stuck in my bubble of depression. So I didn't know any of this. And, uh, you know, having found that out through my sister, who was a year older than me. And so she was in a grade above mine. But yeah, that never reached me when I was in school. Thank God. Because I don't know how I would have felt about that. I don't know if I would have been able to really deal with such things. Um, but yeah, being the quiet kid, just wishing that I could find other quiet kids. But yeah, I could never really relate to the black kids around me, especially the black girls. I I don't know. Once I figured out who they were and who I was just like, I don't know. I just didn't try because like I said, I don't think I wanted to. I think it was too much. I think it was just took too much effort to fit into spaces that I couldn't naturally float to. Yeah.